Try that again. Good evening, everyone. There we go. Misano is steeped in history. I'm not just talking about the race circuit, which was built in the 1970s. I'm talking about the entire region. The oldest settlement was originally known as Misano Monte, quite literally after a hilltop village inland. That's all it was really known for. But after World War II and the bombings that happened in the local surroundings, the area shifted its centre down towards the coast to focus on tourism. And the beach town that is quite literally associated with Misano has only been a recent phenomenon. And were it not for Mussolini back in the 1930s, we might have even seen the historicity of Misano disappearing. Thanks to intervention from El Capitan and Benito himself, it remained an independent area. Despite that, in the early 30s and the saviour of its own town, Mussolini in his own way managed to be involved in changing the name. Briefly, it became known as Villa Vittoria, before becoming what it is now known as today, the Misano Adriatico region. But this circuit, since the 1970s, has become a huge part of the international racing community, most notably for MotoGP, but for loads of other different types of racing. Formula E, the World Superbikes, the TCR World Tour, the European Touring Car Championship, even Formula E and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo used to race in the finals around here, but nowadays it is predominantly motorcycle racing and GT cars. It is one of those circuits that will always promote a challenge in a driver. And for the heat, for those that are racing from the UK this evening, it is certainly on for tonight. And if that action couldn't spice up any more, it certainly will, because we are back for season 13 of ACC Race Nation. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator, as always, for the GT Challenge through series here at Misano. 15 rounds of pure adrenaline fueled action to be overcome in the next 18 weeks. We'll talk more about the calendar shortly. We are in the midst of free practice at the moment. There's quite a lot to cover over the next period of time. So if you are watching for the first time or you're a regular to the channel, make sure you are following the stream, make sure you're following the channel to get all of the racing action here on Twitch and of course on YouTube as well. All videos will be present on there the next day. But we've got a lot to go through, as I already mentioned, so let's make a start. Lots of changes in the off season between season 12 and season 13. So what I'm going to do is go through the regular drivers to start off with, and then I'm going to go on to the returning drivers that we haven't seen for a period of time, and also the debutants for tonight's action. There's regulation changes as well, one of which will affect today's session between qualifying and the race, and something that will affect all of the drivers who finish on the podium from round 2 onwards, but I will talk more about that in a moment. To start off, the regular drivers that we've been having over the last few seasons, and I'm going to start off because it's quite apt actually with Dan Hatton, who is in the pits. Now, for those that watched the race stream a few weeks ago at the end of season 12, we all went to bed believing that Dan Hatton was the season 12 champion. However, as I noted at the time during the stream, I noticed that Danny Felix was in the pits and there was a technical issue with the timing tower. Now, despite Dan Hatton and Mark Chapman finishing on the same number of points, Dan Hatton had won the championship on countback due to race wins. Alas, the timing tower with Danny Felix was incorrect. So when the boys back in the admin team looked at the actual data, Danny Felix hadn't finished in the position that the game believed him to be in, and in fact Mark Chapman had finished one place higher, which gave Mark Chapman the status of being a 3-time champion. Now sadly for Dan, that meant that his first championship was taken away from him out of the circuit, which we don't like to do, of course, but with great grace, to be fair. Dan did accept it for what it was, and that's a sign of a great individual, not just a great potential champion. So Dan is in the pits. He's looking to try and get that first championship then in a new livery that I can sort of make out there in purple and white. Other regulars that we've got, Steve Hall, who's in the pits at the moment. It doesn't say that on the timing tower, but he is. He is back in the number 5 Ferrari. Must also mention Hatton, still in the same Mustang. Steve Hall. Big change, Dennis Penders in the 103 Mustang. Now, all the time that I've ever commentated on Dennis, he's always been in the Ferrari, so a brand new car for him this season. Let's see how he adapts to that. Zolt Barabas is back in the Nissan GTR. Stuart Packham thinks it's too hot, but he has returned into the Lamborghini. Howard Dunn has got a slightly new livery on his Aston Martin V8 there. Jeffrey Van Buren has got the new updated 2025 livery of Max Verstappen on the side of his car. He is back in his 187 Ferrari. Jordan Harding, brand new car for him in the Bentley, reminiscent of course of the Speed 8 that won the 2003 Le Mans. Cracking livery that on Jordan's car. Roland Jordan is back as well. He joined later on at the end of season 12, but Jordan in the championship, he's in the M4 just there. Davey Zoutenbayer, we're going to get a good back-to-back comparison between himself and Zolt Barabas. He's in the Nissan GTR as well, the number 18's gone for a purple livery this time around. Danny Zoutenbayer, season 10 champion of course, he's back, but he's in a new car this time in the AMR V8, and he's gone for a sort of inverted bumblebee livery, which I quite like, in the black and yellow. Jacob Byford-Rue is also returned. He's in the literal 007 Aston Martin, and he is racing that with the, I think he's the Heart of Racing livery he's got going on there. So that's good to see Jacob back. Mikey Keating is also back. He's got an Aston Martin this time. He drove the Lamborghini last season. Liam Watkinson has moved into the Ford Mustang after driving the Porsche last season, and Joe Warner has also moved into an Aston Martin after campaigning quite challengingly, if you want to make that a word, in the excuse me, my apologies, competing in the AMG Mercedes last season. And Danny Felix has also returned. He's got a new change of car. He's in the M4 as well, a brand new livery on the 985. He's gone from McLaren to M4. I'll also briefly just go through the returning drivers who we haven't seen for quite a while, and it's nice to have them back. Nick Lamming is back for the first time. He used to race in the McLaren. He raced back at Brands Hatch, the 2-hour race in season 11. That's the last time we saw him, so it's been a good 25 races since we last saw Nick Lamming, so it's good to have him back. And also, and he was a regular at the start of last season, but sadly his pain and stuff caused him more trouble. John Wells is back in the Audi R8. He's gone for the Evo 2 variant this time, so we'll see how he does in that. And one other driver, she's returning after her one appearance from season 12, a winning one it was. Ellie Pocket in the 855 McLaren. So will she be able to take another race win tonight? We will wait and find out. As I mentioned before, we have a load of debutantes to talk about as well, so we'll just go through those. First of all, we got Mr. Takacs here in the 301 BMW, which is good to have him here in the championship. Of course, for Daniel, another Hungarian joining the championship, so I'm excited to see how he gets on. We also have in the AMR V8 Vantage, we've got Laszlo Mihaly. He is in the 966 Aston Martin. My apologies. I do know a little bit of a Hungarian, so I've got to make sure I get his name correct. I don't want to pronounce that incorrectly because that's unfair. So Miahi is in the 966. And then we scroll a little bit further down over to the 84 of Peterson there. Actually don't have a... For some reason we didn't have a record for him, but I do have his name down. The Dutchman, that is Mitchell Peterson in the 84 Ferrari. We also have Gerwald Ursinus in the M4. Beautiful name that, actually, to be fair. Gerwald Ursinus is a fabulous name. So let's see how Gerwald gets on. So 2 Dutchmen to join Jeffrey Van Buren as well. And then the other debutant as well that we've got in the championship tonight is also rocking the number 98, and he's also rocking the M4 there, is Ballant Balak. And he's currently just come out of the pit. So that's all the drivers that we are looking at for this evening. It's going to be certainly eventful tonight, and Misano, not one of those circuits I don't think that is easy to overtake at, but will promote opportunities throughout the course of the race. Now I know that sounds very contradictory to what I've just said, but there aren't a massive amount of overtaking spots. We've just saw Lamming coming out of one of the heavy braking zones in the circuit there at turn 8. That's a potential opportunity there. Also potentially coming out of the penultimate corner into the final corner as well. The rest of the track isn't really a standard overtaking place. It comes from mistakes from drivers. So we'll have to see how they get on. Really a big fan of Dan Hatton's new livery on the Mustang. I like the way the purple pops from the white. It's quite nice. We don't see many white liveried cars, which, to be honest with you, mostly they don't look very promising sometimes, but that's particularly nice. But we have got drivers coming across the start-finish line. We have, of course, 3 minutes and 40 seconds into qualifying. Stuart Packham is on provisional pole at the moment on a 1:34.830. Dan Hatton is then next up. Well, it was going to be the case, and Ellie Pocket resumes from where she left off, back from round 13 at Kyalami, where she won, onto pole position for the time being. Dennis Penders is 4th, Steve Hall 5th, Davies Altenbauer in 6th place, Jordan Harding in what he is dubbing the Bentley Speed 16 is in 7th place, and Joe Warner there in 8th position. See how Joe gets on with a brand new car. Danny Felix has just come across the line as well. A bunch of other cars going on to or finishing laps. It's Roland Jordan here coming across the line, and he goes into 9th position, and as does Mitchell Peterson, and he'll be quite happy with that effort so far. We do have 30 drivers registered for the action for the season ahead, so we only have, we've got 24 drivers in so far. There's me, Ahi, in 11th place. Mikey Keating has just gone across the line. He's going on to a lap. I'm looking at Davy Zoutenbayer going a little bit quicker there in the passionate purple livery is what I'm going to call it. But I am very curious to see how the Nissans get on this season. It does seem like a car that has the potential to battle with the cars at the front. We just don't really get to see it very often. Now, I've just done a little bit of momentary research because I wanted to double check the pronunciation of Laszlo's surname. Whilst I've been just having a little look at my own calendars, and then I've got here, it's actually Mihai is how you pronounce his surname. So apologies to Laszlo. It's Mihai from now on. We'll remember that. But Ellie Pocket leading the way currently by 0.4 of a second from Dan Hatton. Stuart Packham in third place. It's Davy Zaltenbayer in fourth. Then it's Daniel Takacs in fifth. Jeffrey Van Buren in sixth place. Just coming around the final corner is the 187. Let's see what he does as he comes across the start-finish line. Little improvement, puts him up to fourth, but a dominant pace from Pocket so far. In fact, only 2 drivers are within a second of her. That is impressive. There's Jordan in the big Bentley. In an ideal world, we'd have more than one Bentley on the circuit, so we could call them the Bentley Boys. Throwback to the 1920s for anyone who's interested in their endurance racing. But alas, there is just the solitary boy on circuit. He has just been displaced actually by Zolt Barabas, so the Nissans already putting themselves near the top 10 as Nick Lamming moves up to 6th place. Now, let's not forget, Nick Lamming, I believe, from memory, his best ever result was 12th place, from memory, from what I recall. So, already putting himself in a glorious position for the championship in the Mustang, which we do have quite a few more Mustangs in the championship for this season. I'm curious to know how the drivers will do against the changes that have come in from ballast regulation and BOP. Talk more about the ballast in a moment, but there are still cars continuing to circulate. We've only got Liam Watkinson left to set a lap time in the Mustang. We've got Ballant Ballock there just with Mikey Keating and Joe Warner. So that'll be a confidence booster, that, for Joe to be in front of 2 cars and his good mate of Liam Watkinson. But Liam yet to set a lap time. We've got a car off the circuit at the top of the track there. Looks like they've had a spin. They've gone back to the pits. It was actually Stuart Packham who'd gone off the road there in the 78 Lamborghini. But Watkinson comes across the start-finish line and he is going to continue on. So no lap set there from him, as Dennis Penders puts the Mustang up to 7th place. Dan Hatton within 0.4 of provisional pole. That's a nice lap time, that, from Gerwald Ursinus. He's just gone up into the top 6. Nick Lamming has decided he wants to go a little bit faster, so he's got that's a dark green, isn't it? I think a dark green and yellow Mustang livery. That pops a bit like a little bit like a road Mustang that we've seen over the years. That's quite a nice car. Ellie Pocket has gone faster as well since we spoke about Dan Hatton being within 0.4. It's now up to, as near as makes no difference, 7. So that is an astonishing pace from the 855. Jacob Byford saying, hello, Jack, it's too hot. Well, I do appreciate the challenges that the drivers who are competing in the UK are facing. It is a hot day today, depending on where you are in the British Isles. But from my commentary box, I'm in an air-conditioned living room, and I'm not feeling the adverse weather effects of everybody else. It's not a brag. I've got to make sure I'm cool for this. But let's follow the drivers out on circuit. Let's go and find somebody who is coming towards the start of a lap. There's a couple of drivers out there that I'm just trying to get towards. I think Ursinus is going to be the best one, so we're on board with the Dutchman in the M4. Coming out of the final corner, he's going to blast his way then towards turns 1, 2 and 3. It's really important to get over to the left hand side, brake just before the 50-metre marker, down through the gears, and he runs just a touch wide into turn 1. It will compromise him for 2 and subsequently 3 as that car rolls its way around turn 3 and into Rio at turn 4. Heavy braking zone. It's really important to tuck the car into the apex. Just has a little bit of understeer that pushes him out wide. Nice and tight though for the exit of 5, and cuts over the curb on the inside at 6 and runs a little bit too wide, and that is the end of that flying lap. We'll have to find someone else. We've got on board, well, we would have been on board with Danny Felix, but he's just abandoned that lap. We will find somebody who is in the right place. Stuart Packham, spot on. Comes out of then the flying left-hander of turn 6. Turn 7's not really a corner in dry weather conditions at all, you won't even notice it. Into turn 8 at Quesia, down through the gears, second for the Lamborghini. He's up on his lap time so far, a little wiggle on the exit that has cost him a touch of time. 9 sets the car up into turn 10 at Tramonto. It's all about just ensuring the throttle application is nice and smooth on the exit, which it is from the Lamborghini driver. It's a complete blast towards Cavone at turn 11. Technically 2 apexes for this corner, but it is only classed as 1. Completely flat through the first part. Then into 12, and that will set you into 13. Another heavier braking stop that leads into a full braking stop at Caro. Down into first gear, tucks the car in, but I think didn't really get the line right through that corner. Into the penultimate corner where you can attack in the Lamborghini. The way that the centre of gravity works in this car is quite nice for these last 2 corners, but Packham loses out on that lap thanks to that mistake at Caro. I think he just got the line wrong. He is in the 34s currently, but sits third on the provisional grid. Hello to everyone who is watching at the moment. Hope you're having a lovely evening. Hope you're staying nice and cool. Make sure you are staying hydrated. And what I will say, just a point for the race this evening. Between qualifying and the race, normally we have what would be described as a 2-minute break before the action gets underway. But tonight, because of the excessive heat for a number of drivers, they've extended the break from 2 minutes to 4, just so everyone can get some ice, get it into their drinks tray, whatever they've got as part of their setups, and then they can get racing for 1 hour. So that's a little bit different from usual tonight. It does look to be a one-off, but depends how the rest of the season goes. We've no idea what the effects of El Nino will have. But Ellie Pockett's still comfortably in front of Dan Hatton, who is on a lap in the Mustang. He has been on a flying lap whilst we were following Stuart Packham before. So let's see if the season 12 runner-up can improve. He stays in second place. No improvement in lap time. Packham, the first of the drivers outside of a second. Nick Lamming will be delighted with that qualifying performance. The exact same lap time as Zolt Barabas, but I will mention this because it's important for anybody who isn't really aware of how the timing systems work within motor racing. If you set the same lap time, it goes off basically the first driver who sets it. So Nick Lamming set it earlier in the session, and Barabas did the same lap time, but he's in 5th place as opposed to 4th. Van Buren's 6th place. Ursinus, the leader of the debutants so far in qualifying, in 7th. Then it's Penders, then it's Davies Altenbayer, and it's Daniel Takacs in the top 10, just in front of Harding and Hall and Howard Dunn. Those are the last drivers within 2 seconds of provisional pole as we watch Howard Dunn round turn 16, quite literally Misano corner. Comes towards the start-finish line for Howard, and he pulls it over to the side of the road. Danny Zoutenbayer was in 14th place, but he's just dropped down to 15th because Rob was saying about Ursinus being the debutant who was the fastest, but Balance Balak has just gone into 7th place in the M4. So the Hungarian has got that honour for the time being, just within 1.6 seconds of Ellie's class-leading time. So where I was before, Steve Hall, Howard Dunn, then it's Danny Zoutenbayer, then it is Laszlo Mihai, then it's Mr. Pedersen. I like saying Mr. Pedersen, sorry. But I know it's, of course, not pronounced like that. It's Mitchell Peterson in 17th place. It's Roland Jordan in 18th. John Wells in 19th place. Let's hope he can have a good full season this time around. I know John was suffering with a few personal issues during the course of season 12 and he just couldn't get himself to the... As my headset, as always, disconnects. But John Wells inside the top 19. And then we go to the quintet at the back. It's Byford Rue 3.7 off pole. Danny Felix in the pits, Joe Warner in the pits, Mikey Keating in 23rd, and Liam Watkinson in 24th. This is all about testing for those drivers. Jeffrey Van Buren spots himself up to 7th place. It's all going to continue to change with less than 4 minutes remaining. Ellie Pocket comes across the start-finish line. She doesn't improve on that lap so far. Jordan will be hoping for a spot inside the top 10 in the Bentley Speed 16, as it has been christened now. But what does the Bentley do as it comes across the start-finish line? Probably not going to be the best car for this circuit, but Jordan puts it into the 4th row of the grid. That is a highly competitive effort from a car that we know isn't the best at certain circuits, such as Misano, with its low speed properties in the lower gear corners. It does have a few straights to stretch its legs. We know how quick the Bentley has been in the past, as seen with Stuart Packham in seasons gone by. But that's a good, strong qualifying effort for the man who was the championship leader during season 12, but sadly ended up missing the last 5 rounds of the championship, did Jordan, which was a great shame. But he'd scored so strongly, did Jordan, through the first 10 rounds that he competed in. He actually finished 11th in the overall drivers' standings, 5 points away from the top 10. So that just speaks volumes about how good he was in that Honda NSX last season. So whether Jordan can maintain that form, we'll have to wait and see. Penders is inside the top 10. Good to see Penders just adapting to the Mustang. Seems like he's got straight into that car without really any trouble. Dan Hatton coming towards the start-finish line. He does have an improvement there in the Mustang. Not as much as he would have liked, but it is an improvement. So there could still be more time to find from him. Look through towards Ursinus coming towards the start-finish line. Any improvement? Not yet. He's got time on this lap to do one more flying lap. Van Buren comes towards the start-finish line. It's no improvement from him, but it is from Danny Zoutenbayer, and that'll be encouraging for him. Into 9th place he goes, and I think that was Mitchell Peterson coming across the start-finish line, the Dutchman. Yes, it was. Steve Hall, season 8 champion. A long time since we saw Steve in I would call that quite a different livery, actually. I know that he runs a similar scheme, but the lime green's very different to what we're used to. No improvement from the number 5 currently. Zalt Barabas inside the top 5, still on that same lap time as Nick Lamming. What about Ballack here in 6th place? Can he get in front of Barabas? No, he can't. And looking down the field so far, I can't see any more improvements as Roland Jordan comes across the start-finish line. We are pretty much coming up to the final few laps here of qualifying. Can Ellie Pocket move the bar further away? She can. She absolutely can, with a 33.5. And Dan Hatton's come back into the pits thinking, what do I do from here? So the gauntlet is thrown down for everybody to try and pick up if they can. Harding comes into the pits. That's qualifying over for the Bentley man. What about Ursinus? He'll have just enough time, I think, to do one more lap, will Gerwald. He's in 11th as it stands. So we start now to get the checkered flag coming out. So Penders comes across the line. No improvement from him. Jeffrey Van Buren got up to 6th in the end. We look towards Mitchell Peterson. He goes 17th. That's a good qualifying that from Mitchell on his debut. John Wells rounding the final corner in, of course, the number 69 car. John has always run that number as far as I've ever been aware. But John comes towards the start-finish line, and that's an improvement for the Audi to go within 2.6 seconds of provisional pole. Looks like there's 2 cars coming towards the checkered flag here. One of them is Stuart Packham, and the other one has actually gone around the corner, so we don't know who it was, and whoever it was, I think it was Ballack, actually spun at the final corner. So 2 to go. Ellie Pocket is one of them, and that's that. Well, there we go. We did not see the end of that qualifying lap because Ali Pocket has put it on provisional pole by 3/4 of a second. That is a statement lap time to be putting out there in the first round of the championship. Dan Hatton is in second place. Stuart Packham is within a second of that pole position time. Then it's Nick Lamming and Zolt Barabas on fourth and fifth places on the exact same time. Jeffrey Van Buren is in sixth, with Ballack and Hardin on row number 4. Great effort from Ballack there to get himself the highest debutant of the night for qualifying. Then it's Dennis Penders and Danny Zoutenbayer inside the top 10. It's then, of course, outside the top 10, Gerwald Ursinus and Davy Zoutenbayer on row 6, with Daniel Takacs and Steve Hall on row 7. Howard Dunn is in 15th position alongside Laszlo Mihai. Then it's Mitchell Peterson, Roland Jordan, John Wells and Jacob Byford-Rue rounding out the top 20, which would of course mean that we've got Danny Felix, Liam Watkinson, Mikey Keating and one more driver that, for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me at this point in time, I've forgot. Of course, who could I forget? Joe Warner is the other driver just outside the top 20. So that's where we're at. And we'll have this intermission effectively where the drivers will have a chance to have a pause, get some drinks. Liquids, of course, really important today and, of course, during the course of the summer. Wherever you are in the world, whether you are Hungarian, Dutch, Canadian, German, British, Belgian, even Danish or South African, make sure that you are getting a lot to drink. You might be wondering, for some people at home, why I'm mentioning those specific nations. Those are all the nations that are competing in season 13 so far that have been confirmed. But as I said before, we are having a little break for a moment. So what I'll do is I'll talk for a minute or two and then I'll give myself a breather as well, because I want to talk a little bit about the regulation updates. So first and foremost, there have been a few changes to the BOP. I know that the Mustang has had a little bit of BOP applied to it. So that is important for a lot of drivers. They'll have to try and adapt to that. Of course, for those as well that are unaware about the success ballast, last season we effectively ran with 30-20-10, or 30-20-15 rather, for the ballast of kilos. But that has been increased. So none of the drivers this evening will have any ballast applied to their car. A little bit like the British Touring Car Championship in the UK, where everyone at round one all gets to run with the same amount of tarmac and fuel, effectively. But for the drivers who finish in the top 3 tonight, for round 2, they will be carrying the following. So if Ellie Pocket, for example, wins the race tonight, next week she'll be carrying 40 kilos of ballast. If Dan Hatton finishes second, he will carry 30 kilos of ballast. And then Stuart Packham, if he finishes in third, he will carry 20 kilos as well. So that's one of the big changes for the championship in season number 13. But I'm going to give myself just a quick breather. I'll be back momentarily for the start of the formation lap. So less than 70 seconds to go in the break moment. Jordan Hardin saying, well, fairly happy with that in the new car. I think that's a strong qualifying effort. Row 4 for the Bentley. But I think the big narrative of this race is, can anyone stop Ellie Pocket? Because that qualifying performance was scintillatingly quick. And as we saw at Kyalami, she knows how to race. She knows how to win, take victories convincingly. So it will be down to the rest of the field to try and take the performance up to her standards at the moment, because 3/4 of a second is a huge amount of time to try and recover around Misano. When you think about it, Misano as a circuit,
20 seconds.
As the timer counts down there, just as I was talking, got myself momentarily distracted. With it being 2.6 miles as a track, that's a lot of lap time. You're effectively looking at, for every 800 metres, 2.5 tenths of lap time have disappeared. So that is quite a lot to catch up with. Just want to give you a quick overview of the back of the grid, because we obviously can't cover that during the end of the results. Joe Warner is 21st. He'll be delighted with that, in front of Mikey Keaton, who got in front of Liam Watkinson, who in turn got in front of Danny Felix. So that is a really good start to the season for those guys. Danny will be aiming to come back through in this event, so we've seen him before have some good battles at Misano. But the drivers are underway now for the formation lap. 4 minutes past 2 here on race day at the World Circuit, named of course after the legendary Marco Simoncelli, MotoGP race rider, who sadly died in Sepang a number of years ago in a collision there, but well taken to their hearts of the fans, and it was renamed after him. So the drivers will be focusing now their attentions on getting themselves into formation, getting the tyres warmed up, getting themselves in a position where they can try and attack into turn 1. This 1 hour race won't be easy. Certainly will ensure that there will be some mischief at some point. We did see it last season when we raced here. We did have a little bit of shenanigans going on into turn 8. Ended up having a car fired off the road, and a couple of pit stops happened as a result of the contact. But we're just waiting on the drivers to circulate around. Apparently there has been a slight error with the BOP, which the admin team are currently talking about at the moment. To wait and see, but the drivers now getting themselves into formation as they approach turn number 14, as everyone gets themselves in a little bit of a tiz there. I think that was, yeah, I'm fairly certain that was Balak there, just going through a couple of cars. But Ellie Pocket starting in pole position. It'll all come down to the start realistically. If Dan Hatton can get in front, this will make a huge difference in the outcome of the race as they come around the final corner now. Hatton looks like he's a little bit out of place there. He needs to get his car lined up. We are about to get the action for season 13, a new dawn underway with ACC Race Nation. The cars are coming towards the start finish line, and the race is live here at Misano, and that's exactly the start that Pocket would have wanted. She's going to be clear into turn number 1. Packham is down the inside. He's going to bounce over the curbs. There's a few cars ruttling around in the background there. We just see Steve Hall in the midst of the midfield. A little bit of contact between himself and Howard Dunn. That's the M4 of Daniel Takacs, just in front of Zoutenbayer on the right hand side as they break into the first hairpin of the corner. Ooh, as it really bottlenecks into that zone just through there. Mitchell Peterson trying to fight his way through at the minute, but it looks relatively clean. But what a start at the front Fairly pocket. She's absolutely miles up the road. Nick Lamin's going to be overtaken. I think he's going to actually be pushed wide by Balak there and off the road. I don't think Nick will be too pleased about that. And I'm fairly certain that Van Buren got past the pair of them as we follow Ursnes through turns 9 and 10. Lamming all over the grass there. We've got a surprise Jordan Harding behind us in that moment, who's just fallen down the order in the start of this race. So it's all kicking off in the action at the start. And we've got a spinner in the background. I think that's Dan Takacs, and I think Steve Hall's gone off the road as well. Ellie Pocket, though, 2 seconds clear. She's had a great start because Dan Hatton has gone well off the road and Stuart Packham's lost it. He spins the car round. He's facing the wrong way. He followed Dan Hatton's line and Packham goes round. He's going to have to slot himself just in front of Howard Dunn. It was a nice gap for him to fall into, but unfortunately for him, that drops him out of the podium positions. He would have been one of the pre-race favourites to have secured that podium as well. So following Dan Hatton's line hasn't helped him. That puts Zolt Barabas into the podium spots. Van Buren, that's Nick Lamming alongside Dennis Penders. The two Mustangs going side by side through turn 2, but the Mustang does not find a way past the number 87. As we follow Ursnes, who goes very wide, and he's actually opened the door there for Jordan Harding. I don't know if Ursnes is going to be able to get back through onto the line that he wants. So the number 16 of Harding to the outside. They're going to make contact through the left-hander, and that's contact. Is Jordan in a straight line still? I think he is, just about, but he's lost the place to Danny Zoutenbayer, and Stuart Packham's going to come through too. Down the inside goes the Lamborghini, trying to make up as many places as we possibly can in one moment. And they're going to be side by side towards turns 9 and 10. Zoutenbayer on the inside in the inverted Bumblebee, and Zoutenbayer braked very early. Packham around the outside if he can, but then it becomes a drag race, and we know that the Lamborghini isn't normally the quickest in the straight line, but today seems to be in a very good position. On the outside though, at the next corner, so Zoutenbayer is going to be level into that corner as we follow on board with Jordan Harding. Level again into the right-hander at turn 12. Harding's just got to find a place to put his car, as he desperately wants to get back past Packham, but I don't think that's going to happen. And Danny Zoutenbayer stays ahead of the Lamborghini. So a good 5 or 6 corners where the cars were side by side, and good clean action from everybody. And I say something that has happened. Ellie Pocket's made a mistake, because that gap is no longer over 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. That is less than 1. So Dan Hatton will be smelling a little bit of blood there, potentially, from the driver in front. We still follow Balak here in 7th place, the number 98. Just behind Nick Lamming and Dennis Penders, who are squabbling over 5th place. But the top 4 have kind of pulled away from this group. There's Balak, there's Felix, just behind Liam Watkinson, outside the top 20. There's Daniel Takacs, and Steve Hall's back there as well. So I wonder if there was contact between those two on the opening lap. I wonder if Felix moved out of the way. Here comes Liam Watkinson to the outside of the M4 as Byford Rue tries to attack Joe Warner, who's had a great start as Joe. A little bit wide from Felix, and Takacs goes past Keating for 21st place. And Byford Rue trying to find a way up the inside. Gets a nice exit in the Aston, but Joe Warner's level for that. Davey Zoutenbayer circulating in 13th place. One driver who's been well known to be able to have some good race speed, but right now is in a train of cars that's headed kind of by Stuart Packham, and then it's Harding, then it's Dunn in front of us. Danny Zoutenbayer, the car between the two aforementioned groups. Zolt Barabas running in 3rd place, and Danny Felix has been disqualified for driving in the wrong direction. I wonder if he's spun. Okay, that's what's happened. There's a feature of this circuit where if you spin the car and try to turn it around, it's at turn 12 and 13. If you are seen to be driving backwards at a certain angle, the car can be disqualified, and I think that's what's happened to Danny, which is a massive shame. And whilst we've been talking, Dan Hatton's in front of Ellie Pocket. Whilst we've been talking, the race lead has changed. When we last looked, Dan Hatton was 7 tenths behind the McLaren, and that has now changed around dramatically. We're going to have to get the replays out. There's quite a few things that we need to follow up on as we are on lap 3 currently. But Ellie Pocket will now have to try and fight her way past Dan to get that opening race win of the season. We aren't 6 minutes, we are now 6 minutes, quite literally, into the race session. There's John Wells. Joe Warner's just slid down a little bit. He's giving a lot of room, as Joe, actually. And is that Daniel Takacs going past Byford up front? It is, and Joe Warner gets back in front of Mikey Keating. And now John Wells is trying to find a way past, as they blast their way down towards turn towards turn number 11 on the right hand side. Mikey backs out of that one on the wrong line. Through there is the man from Birkenhead, and John Wells just slots in. Oh, he's going to go for a dive bomb at turn number 13. That will have caught Joe unawares and unprepared, and the Audi moves up into the top 20. So nice overtake that from the LMS Evo 2 driver. He'll be delighted with that. Packham now on the back of Ursinus, riding on board with the Lamborghini. That's a little bit wide from the M4, but not really an overtaking spot for Packham to take advantage of. Now he's going to blast out of the turn 6. They come towards turn 8. Of course, the left-hander at turn 7 doesn't really exist in dry conditions. And will Packham go for the inside? He does, but he's not close enough. But to be fair, Ursinus has given a little bit more space than I think he realised he needed to. And Gerwald's going to have to try and just defend this one into the next right-hander at turn 10 at Tramonto, which he does. It's a good effort from the M4, but the Lamborghini looks very suited tonight to the circuit conditions. And Packham, we know what he's like. He will make a move if he can try and attempt it. He's looking to the inside more to scare Ursinus, but I don't think the Dutchman's quite averse to anyone trying to go near him at that corner. But the M4 retains 8th position. Dennis Penders has got a bit of pressure from Balak in 7th position, as the Lamborghini takes a really nice line there through the final corner. But as I said at the top of the programme, turn 1 is not really an overtaking opportunity for GT3 cars. We'll keep an eye on that with vested interest. Penders running in 6th place, was fighting with Nick Lamming, who's having a glorious time of it tonight in the AC7. And Penders really coming under some scrutiny now from the debutants, blasting their way towards turn 8. We follow the rear spoiler of the Mustang in the 103. Of course, let's not forget Dennis Penders finished 4th in the championship last season. Got his best ever results for a season. He runs wide there actually, but Balak not close enough. But got 2 podiums last season. His best ever return in the series. So he'll be hoping that he can continue that vein of form, but he's got to try and defend from the debutant who's really giving him a hard time at the minute. Zolt Barabas is running in 3rd, but he's now got a train of cars behind him with Van Buren and Nick Lamming there as well. That's quite significant actually, because Van Buren, he got 1 podium last season, did the Ferrari driver. And despite there not really being that many Ferraris in the entry list this season, he's showing that the car still has strong capabilities. And Barabas is looking for his 2nd ever podium in the championship. Let's not forget, Barabas got that 3rd place at the Nordschleife 2 hour, and that's a chance to go up the inside for the Mustang potentially on the exit of this corner, because those two have held each other up. And now Nick Lamming's got a glorious opportunity. He dodges to the outside line. Barabas is going to defend the inside here, then moves to the middle of the road. Can Lamming go around the outside of Van Buren? Oh, that was a really strong mid-corner block from the Ferrari, and that stopped Lamming from taking advantage. So good racecraft from the 3 of them, and really good racecraft from Barabas, who's hanging on for that podium place. let's not forget, Barabas drove it incredibly well at the Nordschleife to take his first ever podium in the series. He had been threatening it since he started in the series. They moved their way into turns 12 and 13 and into turn 14 at Carrow. To correct myself from area, a little bit deep from Lamming. But as I said before, currently best ever result for Nick Lamming regardless of what happens. He's having a great debut drive in that Mustang. Speaking of drives in the Mustang, Dan Hatton's is anything but easy. Now that Ellie has seemingly sorted herself out, she's now applying the pressure to the Mustang. And she does seem able to just move that car around a lot more comfortably than what Hatton can do in the Mustang. That's a nice exit there out of turn 6. And the 720 GTS Evo is right there. But the Mustang can just defend the middle of the road. That Mustang, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions throughout my commentary over the years with ACC Race Nation, just has the legs on every car in the field. And defending the middle of the corner there for turn 10. See if we can follow Pocket wherever she is in the timing tower. Well, she's second in the timing tower, but of course the way that the unique nature of the ACC Games timing tower doesn't allow us to clip the way we'd like to. But so far, so good for these two. They are 7 seconds in front of the squabbling trio over that final podium as Hatton runs a little bit wide. We've seen the Mustang hanging on a few times. We've seen a few Mustang drivers hanging on throughout the course of the opening 15 minutes or so in the race thus far. And Hatton seems to be doing that as well. But there are certain parts of this track that Hatton seems to be much more comfortable with. Like this section here, certainly a strength of the McLarens. But as soon as we come out of turn 6, which we're about to shortly, as you can see, nice and tight line that from Pocket, but Hatton can just squeeze the power and away he goes off the corner, and he won't be challenged into turn 8. It will take a surprise manoeuvre, I think, to get past Hatton, and we know that the man in first place at the minute is able to fight with intense pressure. We saw that for his first ever race win at Brands Hatch last season for Dan. But Ellie definitely comes across as a different type of customer for the runner-up of season 12. Ellie seems to ooze a bit of confidence in that McLaren, following on from that first race win back at Kyle Army. She definitely will want to try and find a way through and start her maiden full campaign with a victory, but still a long way to go yet in this race. We'll have a look through the rest of the field. John Wells there circulating in 20th place. Packham has got in front of Ballock since we've been talking. Oh, that was a little bit wide, that, from Ballock. Almost opened the door for Ursinus, but wasn't really enough space for the fellow M4 driver to come through. Just there in the background is Jordan Harden, who will be feeling a little bit frustrated following on from his side-by-side earlier with the M4. Penders is still in 6th place. We've got Stuart Packham's off. No, it's not. No, it's Ellie Pocket. The race leaders have gone off. The race leaders have gone off the road. And Ellie Pocket's trying to come back on the track and hits the side of Dan Hatton. Now the two of them have gone off together, and that puts Zolt Barabas in the lead of the race. Goodness me, Zolt Barabas has gone off the road and Jeffrey Van Buren's going to find a way through. It's all kicked off in the last 30 seconds. Zolt Barabas runs wide at turn 6 and Van Buren moves into the lead. But they are squabbling into turn 8, and all of a sudden everybody in the top 10 comes together with an opportunity to potentially fight for a race win. We'll have to have a look at the replay and see what happened in a moment. Nick Lamming trying to open the door for 4th place to Pocket, who must be wondering what on earth has happened there. I am going to check the replay. That's what we're going to do straight off the bat. I said it was Packham because I just saw a 5, but I know that Packham runs them. So, as I was saying, the number 5, I just saw the number 5, and what happened there? So Pocket looks to the inside at turn 1, can't find a way through. Turn 2, all is okay. Nice line that, actually. Oh, and just runs into the back of Hatton. It was as simple as that. And fair credit to her, she actually did let Hatton back through. But I said before, didn't I, that she was stronger through the corner. Actually made contact with Hatton as he came back onto the track. But she was stronger than him through the first sector, and that is the merest of touches. But that's completely changed the complexion of this race. And whilst we've been talking, Nick Lamming has got through, and Zolt Barabas is trying to go around the outside of Van Buren. This race has blown wide open. Here comes the Nissan. Oh, contact between the two of them on the exit of turn 8. That looked a little bit unnecessary, I have to be honest. But the Nissan barges through into the lead. And Nick Lamming moves back down to 5th place. I just saw that on my map there. Then it's Dennis Penders, who's just in front of Packham. Then it's Ballack, who's a little bit further back. Harding has got through in the front of Ursinus whilst this has all been going on. But the top 10 are only separated by, I'm going to say, 6 seconds. If anybody at this stage in the race fancies a very early undercut, this would be the time to do it. But this is new ground for Barabas, new ground for the Hungarian. Fresh off his podium at round 15 of the Nordschleife, he now leads unexpectedly here at Misano, and Van Buren is desperately trying to find his way through. We have got a full race on our hands here. How much damage will Dan Hatton have had as well? Because he had two breaks of contact with Pocket through this corner. Might not be significant, to be honest with you. It might just be bumper damage. But whoa, Barabas moving in the braking zone. Van Buren will be making a mental note of that. It's not something you can do. That was definitely a second change of direction there. Now here's a problem for Van Buren, because the Mustang has got the overlap on the outside at turn 8. It's got to be careful, Hatton, because Pocket will quite literally pick it if she can, and she's going to be in front going into turn 9, but she'll have the outside line for the corner. She does brake a little bit later than Hatton, and Hatton runs a little bit deep there. Pocket saw it coming, and the McLaren moves into 3rd place. Now, it all comes down to whether Hatton can be brave enough to go side by side into turn 11. Will they go door handle to door handle? They will. Through the corner they go together. Has Hatton just about cleared her? He has. No, she's still there, in fact, into turn 12. She's going to have the inside line this time at 13. And Barabas runs off the road. Can he get back on in front of Buren? He can. And Pocket goes in front into 3rd place. And now Van Buren's going to be under pressure into the final corner. Pocket goes to the inside line. And she dives through, but she loses the traction on the exit of the corner. And Van Buren will have the inside line. Van Buren trying to squeeze her up against the pit wall. As they approach turn 1, Pocket to the outside. Van Buren, can he stay in front? Yes, he can. But then he runs deep at turn 2, and Pocket will try and just switch the car underneath if she can, try and turn underneath him. As we ride on board of Hatton, and Van Buren's closing the door, but he didn't close it quick enough, and the McLaren, with a bit of a nudge, goes through, and Lamming hits the back of Hatton as this goes on as well. And look at the gap up front. Zolt Barabas has gone from marginally in front and nearly losing the lead to being 1.6 seconds in front. That's how quickly this race can turn around. And Zolt Barabas will be hoping, as Mitchell Peterson gets overtaken by Roland Jordan, and it looks like potentially Davy Zoutenbayer as well. Oh, contact between Peterson and Jordan. Into turn 8, they're going to be side by side. A lot of people banging wheels and doors at the exit of turn 8. I think people are just not really aware of where the track tightens up on the exit of that corner. But Zoutenbayer gets that position, and Peterson strikes back on Roland Jordan. So nice switchback from the Ferrari. I think actually though Jordan's going to come back through on the inside. If they're brave enough together, they are brave enough. They just leave a squidge of room for one another. Oh, I think Roland Jordan's going to get that wrong. Actually does hit the back of Zoutenbayer and spins around. Now he's got to stop the car because he could get disqualified for that. But somehow he hasn't. I wonder how he's got away with that, because that looked like a huge corner cut, but he's seemingly got away with it. Back at the front, Ellie Pocket is up to second and pressuring Zalt Barabas. Dan Hatton's got back in front of Van Buren, so they've only got one car now to clear the two of them. As we move into the second third of the race distance, as Nick Lamming tries to find an overtake on Jeffrey Van Buren. Everyone has been squabbling so hard that the potential for a race lead has gone away, and there we go. Ellie Pocket's gone through on Barabas, up into the lead, and for the first time in this race, Ellie Pocket takes the lead here at Misano. And what can Barabas do? Oh, Hatton's gone exceptionally deep at turn 10. And thankfully, he's kept it on the tarmac. And Jordan Harding's moved up in front of Stuart Packham whilst we've been talking. So there's all sorts of action going on. But Jordan Harding up to 6th place now. Packham, after his spin, has recovered to 7th place. Penders, Ursinus and Danny Zoutenbayer are your top 10. As here comes Packham to the inside. Is that Nick Lamming who's gone off the road there? I think it is. I think someone else has gone off the road. I think Van Buren's gone off the road. So Nick Lamming's in 4th. What has happened to Jeffrey Van Buren? As Nick Lamming has gone into the pits by the looks of it. He has. It is all changing. Every single moment we look at the timing tower or look at a different piece of tarmac, it all changes again. So let's just go back to the garage, just take stock of everything. So Pocket is a second clear of Stuart Packham. So as I thought, Dan Hatton has also pitted. Van Buren has got damage to the back of that car and he didn't before, and I wonder if Lamming has took a chunk out of him there. So Barabas is a second behind, then it's Packham, then it's Harding, and there's a huge scramble going on further back as Ballantbala tries to go up the inside of Zoutenbayer, and we got a stop and go penalty for John Wells for speeding in the pit lane. So I'll be a bit annoyed at that one, but Ballack putting on a good show today in the M4, the number 98. Right behind Danny Zoutenbayer at the moment is the M4, but Danny Zoutenbayer's had a solid drive thus far. I think he'll be pleased with what's gone on. There's Davey Zoutenbayer. Mitchell Peterson's in the top 10. Then it's Roland Jordan. Then it's Howard Dunn. And we haven't seen much of Laszlo Mihai, but there he is in 13th position, keeping his nose clean. Daniel Takacs has been up and down the field. We're still yet to find out what happened with him and Steve Hall earlier on in this race. Maybe when the race has a moment to quiet down, we'll be able to have a look. Steve Hall's in 15th, then it's Jacob Byford-Roux, Joe Warner 17th, Liam Watkins 18th, and after his spin earlier, Mikey's on the comeback trail in 19th. Nick Lamming has got out in front of Dan Hatton, and Stuart Packham now pits. So Nick Lamming gets out in front of Dan. That was a good pit stop from the 87 Mustang. They are some margin clear of Van Buren, who must have had significant damage that has now been fixed. And John Wells, of course, has got that stop and go penalty that he's going to have to serve. I just want to have a look at what happened to the 187 of Van Buren, because he was going perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden he wasn't where he was supposed to be. So he just skipped forward on a few laps. He's had Nick Lamming behind him for most of the race. Then he briefly had the lead. Went almost free wide there. He's fighting with Ellie Pocket. And that's when he came into the pit. So we'll have to just have a little look. If we can get the right camera. We'll just have to have a look and see. Actually, we might be better served by going there into the pits, and then we can skip back to find out what happened. So into the turn 12. Oh, and it's as easy as what I thought. Gets slammed into the back of by Nick Lamming, and yeah, doesn't look great. Let's just have a little look at it from the perspective of Lamming. Does look like a case of, in fact, to be fair to Lamming, he just lost the back end and the car was sliding through, and that was that. So it was accidental, unfortunately. So we do have a look at that. That'll be something for the stewards to have a look at. But out on circuit, Ali Pocket still leads. She's 3 seconds clear of Zolt Barabas. And Stuart Packham has come out a lap down. Yes, that is the case. Yeah, that is actually the case. So Stuart Packham's had quite a long pit stop for reasons unbeknownst to us. He's come out a long way from Dan Hatton. In fact, he's some considerable length behind Jeffrey Van Buren. So something has happened to Stuart during that pit stop. Yeah, he's 20 seconds behind Dan Hatton. So not sure what's gone on to the 78, but that's going to strike another comeback drive from him. He's going to have to try and pull out of thin air. So there's Barabas. Then it's Jordan Harding. Then it's Ursinus in 4th position. So Gerwald, the Dutchman, doing a solid job. He's fending off the former champion of Danny Zoutenbayer in 5th. Then it's Ballant Balak in 6th. Penders is 7th. I feel like Dennis has had a bit of a wild time in the midfield. I don't think he's really had any clean air through the course of this race. I think he did get caught up earlier as well. He was fighting for a top 6 spot, but some things have happened to that car, as you can see at the front of it. Mitchell Peterson's 8th. He's a couple of seconds clear of this trio of cars fighting over an on-track 9th. Davey Zoutenbayer leads that trio of Dunn and Jordan. Then there's Mihai in 12th, Takacs 13th, Hall in 14th place. Then it's Byford Rue, as John Wells comes in to serve his stop-and-go penalty. Joe Warner and Mikey Keating. Something has happened to Mikey on the last lap. So, as Lamming is fending, this is an important fight. This, because Hatton needs to get on with the job here of getting past Nick Lamming if he can, because we've seen he's got the speed to beat the fellow Mustang stablemate, but that Hatton is on the inside at the final corner. Lamming's going to shut the door, and that was always going to end in contact. And Lamming is going to go round, and Dan Hatton is going to carry on. Now, I hate to say this, but I think that one will be investigated by the stewards, because Nick Lamming has had to do a full rotation to get the car pointing back in the right direction. So sadly for Nick, I said that Hatton had to get on with it. I just didn't mean like that, unfortunately. So Lamming drops down the field, which is unfortunate for him. And Hatton will carry on now and will look to overtake Mikey Keating, who's not, by the way, he's not being a lap down. He's getting overtaken for 17th place, and there he goes. Hatton up the inside and position made. But that squabble with Lamming will have cost him quite a fair amount of time, so he's going to have to work his way back up to the rest of the group. So those are the drivers who were in that battle earlier, let's not forget. About 8 or 9 cars who were fighting over the race lead, and a couple of them, Hatton, Van Buren, Lamming, all pitted early to try and do the undercut. Whilst we're watching, of course, just if you are a football fan, just so you're aware, it is Bosnia and Herzegovina 1, Qatar 0, and Switzerland 0, Canada 0 in the World Cup, just so you're aware. I know there's quite a few football fans in ACC Race Nation, so if they are watching this stream, they've got a little bit of an update there for the time being. But we've got another car coming into the pit. I think that's Joe Warner, who has just come into the pit lane there. There it is. So he's done that. But Balak has not let Zoutenbayer really out of his sight since he got hold of him. He's been a bit of an M4 sandwich, actually, is Zoutenbayer. But I think he'll be encouraged by this. He'll see Jordan Harding just up there and think to himself, that's a good place to be. And there you go. He's actually into the pits. Barabas has also gone in, the man who was running in second place. So the 447, Barabas and the 101 of Zoutenbayer are in, as is Penders and Mitchell Peterson. And Roland Jordan are coming in. So they've all gone over the halfway distance and they thought it's time for a pit stop. A couple of drivers there with damage. I think they'll try and get that fixed over the course of the race. Now, Ellie won't mind about being in front. She'll have clean air. She won't have to worry about anyone squabbling with her for position. She's out in front on her own. She does have a few corners before she catches up to Nick Lamming and Jeffrey Van Buren. So that could all change still there. Steve Hall's in 12th place. Something's not been quite right for Steve in this race. He's got a little bit of damage to the front of the car, but something's not been quite right during the course of this race for Steve after that incident on lap 1. Let's go back and have a little look at that, shall we? Once Dan Hatton comes through, because I could see Dan Hatton coming down the start-finish straight, as you all can, and Zolt Barabas is out on track. So Barabas has gone in front, comfortably in front of Hatton. Zoutenbayer is going to come out behind. But crucially, Zoutenbayer is going to come out in front of Van Buren and Nick Lamming. So that has been a great strategy call for Danny Zoutenbayer. So not doing the undercut has actually worked out for him. And now the race leader pits. So Ellie Pockett's in. Balint Ballock is in as well. So Jordan Harding will lead the way. He's going to do his usual way. He just runs a little bit longer than everybody else. He is being followed by the debutant of Gerwold Ursinus. And I think that'll be a pleasing sight for Ursinus to see that he's second on debut. I know he's not made a pit stop yet, but you can't take that away from him. He is running there on merit. A Pocket coming out of the pits in a moment, but I'm looking at the end of the pit lane and I'm looking at Dan Hatton as or rather I'm looking at Zolt Barabas, who is just coming around the penultimate corner now. I think Pocket is going to be very comfortably clear of second place drivers. I'm fairly certain. There she goes. She's going to put the foot down now. Out of the pit she comes. And Barabas is just coming into turn 1. So Ellie Pocket's strategy has worked out rather nicely. So she leads the way now, with Barabas in second and Hatton in third place. Danny Zoutenbayer is going to be, if my calculations are correct, Danny Zoutenbayer will be in 4th position. So he's put a great drive in. He's just had a few laps where he's been in clear air and just run at his own speed, which is really critical, as you can see, everybody, how important clean air is, because the complexion of this race has now completely changed. We don't yet know where Jordan Harding and Ursinus are going to feed back in. Davy Zoutenbayer is some 17 seconds off the race leader, so he's in a slightly different fight to everybody else. But for these two at the front, for Ursinus and Harding, they've got clean air, and that they've had since the undercutters pitted before. Now those undercutters, as we've already seen, have been fighting really, really robustly over the course of this race. And that's a drive-through for Dan Hatton for track limits. Now that is unexpected, but the season 12 runner-up is going to have to serve a drive-through, and that is going to open the door for a podium spot potentially for, I was going to say Balint Ballock, and I think it would be. Yeah, Dan Hatton's in the pits, going to serve that drive-through. He'll drop behind Van Buren, he'll drop behind Howard Dunn, who also over the course of this race has managed to find his way into a good position. Could be looking at Balint Ballock potentially getting a first podium. I was talking about Danny Zoutenbayer being in 4th place. I did mean that, behind Ballock, but I thought Ballock was out of sync on the track map, but absolutely credit where it's deserved. He's running in a net 3rd position, potentially, depending on how Harding and Ursinus get on, who is closing the gap on the man leading here, and Dan Hatton's, to add insult to injury, is going to have to move out of the way. And Hatton will be sat in his car feeling furious because he knows he's quicker than these two, as has been demonstrated during the course of the race, but now he's going to have to sit behind them until they pit. Jacob Byford-Rouge running in 5th position whilst all that's been going on. We haven't seen it, ladies and gentlemen, but he's yet to pit, but runs in 5th position. Great drive. Danny Zoutenbayer, he'll be looking at the back of that M4 and thinking, ooh, there's a chance of a podium. That's what he'll be thinking. Zoutenbayer had a bit of a dark spell last season, did Danny. He ran a different car to start the championship off with, switched back to the Ferrari, got that 3rd place at the Red Bull Ring, and had a number of strong races actually, but just didn't quite, for whatever reason, seem to be as strong as he typically is. You know, back in season 11 when he was just driving for fun in that championship as the reigning champion of season 10 at that point, driving for fun at times, but I think he just took a little bit of speed and time to get up to it. But he's now in a new car, and maybe this AMR V8 will galvanise him. And look at that, Ballack having to lap traffic. That was a little bit awkward for the M4. A gap under 2 seconds. We'll keep an eye on that. There's Mihai in 13th place, about a second and a half off Jordan currently. That could come back together. There is, in fact, Jordan in the 973. Daniel Takacs is in 18th place. And Ursinus is in the pits. So the man who was in 2nd place on the track has now pitted. Now, what is crucial for this point of the race is where he comes out in relation to not just Zolt Barabas, but where he comes out in relation to Balint Ballack. Where will he come out in relation to the Hungarian driver? Ursinus has served his pit stop, and Barabas is going to, I think, Barabas will clear him with some Hungarian action on track there. Ursinus, this is going to be tight with Ballack. Dutch versus the Hungarians. There's Barabas. Ballack is going to come out just in front of Ursinus. So that extra stint from the number 33 has put him in contention for a podium now. And that means to say that now that Jordan has got himself a little bit of gap at the front, well, he's had an extra lap to come in. Can he sneak in front of the 2 M4s? Because if he does manage to do that, that'll put him on the podium. Oh, this is going to be incredibly tight now. This has got all the hallmarks of being a mighty scrap for the final place on the podium. 2 debutants, a reigning champion and a previous champion, I should say, and a race winner, all going for the final spot on the podium. This is going to be a fabulous battle. And Zolt Barabas is some distance up the road. There's Danny Zoutenbayer just behind Ursinus at the minute. He's going to have to go defensive from the 101. As we come into turn number 14, Harding is moving down the pit lane. He's got the car going. Ballack is there in 5th position on the road. Danny Zoutenbayer has continued on. So Danny Zoutenbayer is the race leader. Mikey Keaton gets out of the way. And I think Harding's going to come out comfortably in front here. This will be close, but I think he will. There's Barabas. Harding now can get the power down. It's going to be a blast to turn 3, but Harding has done it. So Jordan Harding, after qualifying inside the top 10, is on for a net podium in the Bentley. What a drive. And the strategy call has come out really well. So that has changed the complexion of this race. So let's just have a quick stock check of where we are with everybody. Now that everyone has made a pit stop apart from Davy Zoutenbayer, which is, he's probably going to come out behind. He's going to come out around about where Mitchell Peterson is potentially, I think, from a rough estimation. So Ellie Pocket will lead the race Zolt Barabas is second. Jordan Harden is third. Ballant Balak on debut is fourth. Then it's Ursinus in fifth, just about fending off Danny Zoutenbayer for now. Then it's Jeffrey Van Buren in technically seventh place. Nick Lamming is eighth after being turned around earlier on. Mitchell Peterson will probably be ninth potentially, but we'll get that answer now because Zoutenbayer is in the pit. So that's Davey now in the Nissan. 42 minutes to go. And that's a drive-through for Daniel Takacs. Not ideal. He's had a bit of a turbulent race as Takacs, unfortunately. Zoutenbayer still in the pits. Now he gets the car off the jacks and he'll trundle out of the pit lane. It's going to come out behind Van Buren, Nick Lamming. It'll be, I think Peterson will probably get in front of him as well. So he'll be behind this fight with Roland Jordan and Laszlo Mihai, I think. Will he get in front of Steve Hall? There is Mihai on the right hand side. There you go. That's evidence right there. So Zoutenbayer comes out in 12th, just behind the fight for the last spots inside the top 10. So it's all absolutely to play for here in Misano. And what is so far been a very hectic race that all turned on its head at the 15 minute mark is now poised for a final quarter of an hour action. It's going to be fascinating to see. Ellie Pocket comfortably in the lead now. Since she got in front, she's not had any problems and comfortably clear of the field. So Ellie on her way to 100% race winning record with ACC Race Nation to take 2 wins from 2, but her first of season 13 and the first of anybody's. Jordan Harding in third, Ballant Balak in fourth, then it's Ursinus in fifth place, Mr. Gerwald. Danny Zoutenbayer in sixth place. Van Buren is seventh. Meanwhile, Joe Warner and Mikey Keating are fighting for a spot inside the top 20s. That race has gone very well for them. We have lost Danny Felix, and I think we've lost Stuart Packham as well from this race. Now, he did say before that there was potentially an accident between himself as Van Buren tries to lap traffic, but these two are enthralled in their own fight. And I think Van Buren will be on the radio shouting at his team to get them out of his way. And Warner goes off the track completely. I don't think that was the ideal line, and Van Buren was held up, so Lamming can try and put the pressure on into turn 8. Mikey has outbraked himself into the corner, but he did an arguably better job than what Joe did to move out of the way of the squabbling 7th place fight. Oh, Van Buren's hooked the inside curb. That's going to send him off the road, and Nick Lamming will just take his natural racing line through there, and up to 7th he goes. That is a bit of a rarity. We don't see that very often. A car hooking the inside grass and white painted strip. But that has worked in Lamming's favour thanks to Buren's little trip across the road. Recovering Dan Hatton in 15th position. There's still 15 minutes to go in this race. You never know with Dan where he could end up. There's a bunch of cars all on the start-finish straight, so that could all change. Steve Hull being one of them. There's Mitchell Peterson, who's having a really strong drive inside the top 10 on debut. The Dutchman just seems to have had a nice solid race. Hasn't really had any issues to deal with, but he does have Joe Warner in front of him. He'll need to move out of the way, and Joe has not done that. I think Peterson will be on the lights flashing. Now I want to have a look back. I want to go right the way back to lap 1, because I said earlier about Steve Hall having some form of issue go on over the course of this of this event. We didn't see it, but it happened on the first lap, so... So as I was saying, yeah, Steve Hall... Now this is what I saw in the background. I'm just wondering what happens with himself and Daniel Takacs. We come into turn 10. Is it going to be simply a nudge in the back? Yeah, there you go. As easy as that, unfortunately. And Hall, I think, waits for him, which is the right thing to do. Takacs scrambling all over the track to try and get back on, so Steve had to wait quite a long time. And ever since then, he's not really got himself back into the event. Peterson still under pressure from Roland Jordan, trying to hang on to that spot inside the top 10. Davies out and by just behind. Jordan Harden circulating in third position. There's Howard Dunn just behind Hall and Mihai, but also Dan Hatton will come and join in the fun. There's so many cars going into this corner at turn 8. I think that's Joe Warner trying to get out of the way. Joe Warner and Mikey have been like fighting in the traffic as best as they can. Been quite challenging for the two of them over 19th place. Steve Hall though, that's a little bit of door-to-door contact with Mihai, and Steve goes through into 12th position. John Wells is back in the pits for reasons unbeknownst to us. But these last 12 minutes of the race coming up now. And Dunn dives it to the inside line. Gets through. Important move that, because he didn't want to spend too much time with Joe in front of him, because Dan Hatton looming large in the mirrors of the AMR. That will be an engaging fight. We saw that a few times in season 12. Hatton and Dunn battling for position. And of course we mentioned Howard Dunn because after a number of occasions last season he got that podium position, that third place finish at Laguna Seca in the end. And as in his own words, he wants more of that action, he wants more of that at the front. But I think today, round 1, solid points on the board in 14th, but he's looking to try and close the gap on Mihai in front of us. Oh, look at Hatton's exit. Look at Hatton's overspeed into turn number 8. Hatton just breezed on through down the main straight. Wow. That was a shocking amount of straight line performance. I certainly wasn't expecting that. So, a change of position then. Dan Hatton is now the one looking at Mihai. Ursinus is right with Ballack for 4th place. So these two not only fighting for a really good drive, but they are also the ones who are fighting to be the best rookie of the day. 4th and 5th place is an astonishing drive so far. Kept their noses clean. And Ursinus, the attacker at this point, and they don't really have many other cars that can come into the fight. You know, Danny Zattenbayer is with them, but then after that Nick Lamming is over 10 seconds away, so it's really looking like a 3-horse race for 4th position, because Jordan Harden's pulled away in 3rd. Ballack defending from the number 33. Jeffrey Van Buren's quite close. Oh, Ballack's gone deep at turn 10, but he's just about got the car tidied up, and Ursinus couldn't take advantage of that little mistake. Just brings Zattenbayer closer to the action. 1.3 seconds now. It took half a second out of them because of that mistake. Van Buren's right with Nick Lamming in this last 10 minutes. And Roland Jordan is not far away from Davy Zoutenbayer, but Steve Hall is also in that fight for 10th place. Dan Hatton is right with Mihai. I'm just wondering whether Hatton will try and look to make a late move. He's got an opportunity, but I've noticed with Hatton's Mustang he's carrying a lot of understeer at turn 13, and that's just limiting his chances of a late dive at the heavy stop in turn 14 there. Ballack, Ursinus, Zoutenbayer, that's your closest trio on circuit. Lamming and Van Buren have changed places, so the Ferraris found their way through, but Nick Lamming will be encouraged by this drive. It will be his best result ever in ACC Race Nation, and I think he's done a really good job. And to be honest with you, were it not for his incident earlier with Dan Hatton, you could be saying that this should have been a fight for the podium for the number 87. I think he's put in a solid drive today. I've got to mention though, Ellie Pocket once more, not far away from the end of the race now, but Mihai was very slow off the exit of turn 8 there, and they've actually both slowed up, Dan Hatton and Mihai, so I wonder if there was a bit of contact between the two. But as I was about to say, just regarding Ellie Pocket, just been pretty much invincible during the course of this race. Since she got in front, it's been game over. Last lap of 35.2, Barabas's best lap of 35.1. Got a car off the road. That's Howard Dunn, who's gone off track, I think, at the top of the racetrack. But yeah, Barabas's best lap is only 1/10 faster than Ellie's last lap, which just shows you the measure of consistency she has at the minute. And she's stamping her authority as a potential favourite for the season 13 championship. Of course, we are only at round 1. There's still a long way to go. But this really can be a statement to put out to everybody over the course of this season. She will be carrying ballast next week at Indianapolis, so we'll see how she adapts to that. I know she said she's not the biggest fan of ballast, but that is something she will have to adapt to during the course of the season. We'll see how the McLaren get some of it. We haven't had many times when we've seen the McLarens carry ballast before. Another 35.2 on that lap from the race leader. We'll just look at what Barabas is doing as he comes around the final corner. So it's a 35.2, let's not forget, from Ellie on that lap, and this time for Barabas it's a 36.9. Wow, I think that was a slower lap for Zolt. Just looking at the background, Jordan went a little bit quicker, but not by a considerable amount. So Barabas looking to get his best result ever in ACC Race Nation. He had that third place at the Nordschleife. He's going to carry on that form into season number 13 with a second place, it seems. Dennis Penders, I think from what I was saying earlier, it seems like he's had contact with Stuart Packham, and I think that's why we saw Packham off the road earlier. When I mentioned it, he was off the track map. Looks like there's been contact between himself and the Belgian. And Howard Dunn has fallen all the way down to 16th position too. Less than 5 minutes to go. Van Buren and Lamming still fighting. Dan Hatton, I think he's going to be limited to 13th position this evening. Probably will have an investigation over him during contact in this race. There's a big fight for the last spot inside the top 10, so it's Peterson, Hall and Jordan. Does sound like a 70s glam band, that, doesn't it? Peterson, Hall and Jordan. Coming up with some disco tunes. But I'm really curious to know if Hall can get his season started off with a top 10 result, or whether Mitchell Peterson can get his first result inside the top 10 on debut. That would be an impressive drive. One of the couple of Ferraris, Hall was very sideways at turn 12, and then into 13 he was especially so, and then 14 he gathered it all together and nearly looked at the inside of Peterson. I don't think he meant that, but as one of a few Ferraris in this championship, Hall will want to make sure that he's not last of them, because he is one of the three, and at the minute he's third of the three. He's putting a lot of pressure on, and he's gone on the curb, and that's that for Steve Hall. And I think Dan Hatton might get him here. Oh, and Steve spun it round again. Laszlo Mihai goes through. It's a bit lucky that Dennis Penders was too far away, so Steve Hall's challenge sadly ends there. I think he'd be kicking himself at that one, to be honest. It was a very easy mistake. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Ballack has been overtaken by Ursinus. I knew it was close going into the turn 10 right-hander. Ursinus has got through, and Zoutenbayer is going to follow through. So Ballack goes from 4th to 6th, sadly, in one corner. Ballack trying to hang on to it. They don't want to make contact through that corner. They do make contact through that corner. And Ballack gets his elbows out to push Zoutenbayer down to 6th place. This, I think, will be the fight to see us through to the end of the race here at Misano. So Ballack does not want to let things go, and Gerwald Ursinus has been rewarded following his stalking through the whole of this race with a 4th place as it stands. But Ballack is there with him. Everyone else a little bit spread apart. Roland Jordan's not far from Peterson, but that'll take a bit of effort. On board with the M4 here. We can actually cut between the two, which is lovely. That's great. It's the cameras we would have liked. So Ursinus in front, Ballack in 5th place. We are on the penultimate lap. Ellie is about to start the final lap in about 10-15 seconds time. But I've been really impressed with Gerwald and Ballant tonight. These two in the M4s have driven some good races. And there is confirmation, Ali Pocket, the race leader, on the final lap. But these two and Danny Zoutenbayer are what we're watching. The inverted bumblebee stalking the two of them, ready to sting when he gets the opportunity to do so. Oh, that's a little bit of an awkward line, that, from Ballack through there. We saw that on Stuart Packham's qualifying lap earlier on in the session. He did something similar, and that just invites unnecessary and unwanted pressure from the AMR V8 behind us. Down through the gears we go, into turn 1 for the final time. We've got a car off the road at the exit of 14. They have got going again, as far as I'm aware. I think that's Roland Jordan, that was, who'd gone off there. So that fight for 10th place is run and done. And Ballack just has a little wobble on the exit. And Zoutenbayer actually has also fallen away. So this fight has petered out, is not the right word to say, but it looks like it's been diffused through mistakes of their own. But I'm going to go forward to Ali Pocket. And despite having the contact earlier on with Dan Hatton, this has been a performance that puts her comfortably at the top of everyone's potential championship favourites, because she wins here at Misano. It's Ellie Pocket's second win here with ACC Race Nation. A astounding drive after the fights she had with Dan Hatton earlier on. Zolt Barabas is going to come round the final corner to take his best ever race finish here with ACC Race Nation. The Hungarian will take second place. A wonderful performance from Zolt. And Jordan Harding, He'll be delighted with that for his first race with the Bentley. A podium for the number 16. Ursinus takes a fabulous 4th position on debut. Same with Ballack in 5th. Those two have done great tonight. Danny Zoutenbayer in a new car in 6th. He'll be pleased with that performance as Van Buren nearly drops it on the exit of the final corner. Don't do it there. That's an awful place. But 7th for the Dutchman. Davy Zoutenbayer's put in a solid drive today as well. He's come through the field to finish 8th. Nick Lamming, best ever result in ACC Race Nation, but it could have been better. Watch out for Nick this season. 9th's a really good drive. Mitchell Peterson in 10th place. Dan Hatton recovers to 11th in the end. That's a solid recovery from him. Laszlo Mihai is 12th. Roland Jordan 13th. Steve Hall a limited 14th in the end. And then we've got a couple of other cars coming around these last few corners. Dennis Penders will cross the line in 15th. Howard Dunn in 16th. Dan Takacs is 17th. Byford Rue is 18th. Joe Warner will cross the line in 19th place. After that, you've got Mikey Keating in 20th position, Liam Watkins in 21st, John Wells in 22nd, a retirement in the form of Stuart Packham, and a disqualification, I think rather harshly, on Danny Felix way back in the day. Now, normally, at this point of the stream, I'd be talking waxing lyrical about certain drivers, but we have something slightly new for this season in that I'm going to be interviewing drivers at the end of the race. Now, tonight is a nice little tester for it. I'm going to invite the 3rd place finisher of Jordan Harding into the party so that we can have a chat together. I sadly don't have the other drivers on PSN. They unfortunately haven't added me for various reasons, probably because they don't like me. However, that is something that we can chat about in the future and look towards what people think and maybe chat with the podium finishes for those that are on PlayStation, because that's typically what I stream through. So we'll wait and see for Jordan to come and join us in the commentary area. But looks imperious, doesn't it, that race victory from Ellie Pocket. That's the type of drive that we saw from Will Fielding a few times last season in season 12. And we know that if Will Fielding could put together a championship campaign, he could be a champion. And it's the same with Ellie, whether she can. But we haven't seen her run with ballast yet. That's going to be interesting next week at Indianapolis, whether she can carry that along. What a race, Jordan. Jordan, I've sent you a party invite, so hopefully you can come and join me just in the commentary box. That'd be great if you could. Have a little chat with yourself. There he is, in fact, and has joined. But as I was saying to everybody just before I asked Jordan some questions, you know, a wonderful race victory for Ellie Pocket. Zolt Barabas getting 2nd position, a really great drive from the Hungarian, his best result of the championship ever, which is always a wonderful thing for him to have. But then, of course, in 3rd place, and one of the wonderful Bentleys, the only Bentley out on circuit, Jordan, talk us through that race, because qualifying was very good. I think you'd probably class the races even better though.
Yeah, hello. It was some of the race up, sweaty, I'm going to say that. I never really practiced for qualifying. So it was just a case of see what I could do, put it somewhere, and then we'll just deal with it in the race. And the strategy in the race worked an absolute treat, basically, especially with the tyres. The wear on them was very excessive because of the temperatures on the circuit. It was basically about 20 minutes in, tyres started going right off a cliff.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like that way, because we saw a number of drivers struggling throughout the course of the race, and there were lots of slides that we saw presented out there at Misano. How was it with the new car? How did you get on with it? With anything that you've learnt so far over the course of, well, only 1 hour of action, admittedly?
How to drive right-hand drive again, even though I drive it every day. It's a weird sensation when you drive it's really weird on a game because you drive so much left-hand drive. That's just what you're used to. And going to right-hand drive, understanding the turning points for the left-handers is so much harder because you're trying to gauge exactly how far across you are. But I really love the car. It drove really, really nicely, really stable, and I thank Stu Packham as well, because he sent me across a setup that he used, because I know he used to use the Bentley quite a lot.
Yeah, he did. I alluded to that earlier, actually, about Packham and being the Bentley whisperer, effectively, back in the day. So you've got yourself some sage knowledge from the former champion. What are you hoping for next week? Because it's Indianapolis, which there's certain parts of that track that will suit the big Bentley, but there are other parts perhaps less so. A bit like tonight.
I'm not sure because I've never driven Indy on the game.
Wow.
Every time I've done a league, if it's had Indianapolis in it, I've not been able to do a full season, and that's been one of the circuits I've not been able to drive, or it's just not been in the calendar, because I know it's not necessarily a popular choice. So I remember when we were sort of looking at the calendar, I sort of goaded Steve and John to put it in so I can actually drive it for a change. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of practice work, I think, just to, even though I know the circuit, just to relearn it, because I think the last time I went on Indy was Project Cars 2.
Long time ago.
Honestly. But it should be, I mean, the Bentley should be quite good down the straight, I'll give it that.
Yeah, it will be, it certainly will have its performance down there, and you'll be carrying a little bit of ballast, but in truth the Bentley does carry its weight relatively well anyway, so maybe it won't impact you too much.
I think we'll see a small difference with it, especially as now obviously all the ballast has moved up a tier this season, which I think is a good idea. I mean, sometimes it won't affect too much. I mean, we saw last season when me and the NSX when we came to Misano, although admittedly I think the conditions played a big role in that one last season, rather than the ballast itself. So we'll see how it goes, and yeah, I think it will make a slight difference, but hopefully not a massive one. How does the car look from the outside as well? The nice Speed 16 livery.
I did reference that. I think it's one of the best liveries, if not the best on the grid. But I'm historically biased towards anything that is a reference to anything that's over 20 years old. So, but it does look good. It's got a nice metallic sheen, and I definitely get the Speed 8 vibes from it, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I'm calling it my Bentley Speed 16 because that's my number. That's what I'm calling it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Jordan, for joining us in the interviews, and congratulations on your first podium in the Bentley, and hopefully more good results to come.
Thank you, and thank you for commentating.
Thank you. Well, that's something that we're going to get more familiar with over the course of the season, where I'll be interviewing a number of drivers. Of course, they've got to add me to PSN, otherwise I'm not going to be able to interview them, but we'll see how that goes. As I alluded to before, and as I was saying with Jordan, Indianapolis will form race number 2 here for the Season 13 GT Challenge Series with ACC Race Nation. A lot of acronyms there in the space of one breath. But I've been Jack Millington, your commentator as always for the championship. Thank you very much for watching, and wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and we'll see you next week for round 2 at Indianapolis.